And we thought it would be valuable for you to get a rapid snapshot of a Microsoft Education Partners solution offering in the Teams integrated learning solution space. The goal here is to broaden your perspective on what is available in the market. For those of you potentially interested, stimulate your interest in building on the technology stack that is provided by Microsoft. The partner that I'm going to introduce is Skooler. The solution is their Teams integrated learning tools. Brief introduction to Skooler. Skooler is Norwegian, and they have offices in both Norway and the UK, as well as Seattle in the US. Skooler has been working with schools and organizations since about 2015 and now has customers across Western Europe, the US and Australia. They tend to sell directly to schools. So, if you do get an opportunity to investigate or look at the Skooler website, you will see that they have a pretty intuitive offer for school managers or school administrators. What's their mission? Basically, they are focused on what they say is modernizing and simplifying learning tools, thus ensuring that educational tasks are fully integrated into Microsoft's productivity and collaboration tools, namely Teams and M365. Skooler is one of the 8 education solution technology partners that Microsoft Education works with globally. More information about Skooler can be found at this link here. But let's focus specifically on Skooler's learning tools. And the learning tools are kind of a portfolio of tools that enrich Teams and make it more powerful and relevant for educators. This either by offering missing education features or enriching some of the features that are in Teams today. This includes, for instance, a dashboard, which I'll show you in a moment. But they also have a planning tool, a parent app. They have a richer assignment tool environment. They have, I think, kind of stronger assessment tools. And also they have gamification and awards. I'll show you that later. As well as photo gallery and a seating chart. But first of all, let me explain what I'm going to show here. I was looking at a number of demo scenarios for presenting and demoing the Skooler tenant. Again, none of them were working really very effectively. So again, I thought I'd show the best bits of a video recording that I made during a prep call with the CEO of Skooler, Tor Orve, while he was in his family's car garage. You'll recognize the Teams environment here, with obviously the left-hand menu or ribbon. Obviously, we've got the teams and the different teams that a teacher could be enrolled in or participating in. And then, we've got across the ribbon here, we can see that Skooler has been integrated. Very simple process. Administrator enables the download of the Skooler app, and then Skooler is available to all the people using specific Teams groups. So the first thing is what you'll see here is the dashboard, and the dashboard. Before I get into that, what you'll see is that it's split into 5 parts. You can only see 4 at the moment. These include basically school information, messages, resources, and as well as an overview. And we'll see statistics in a moment. But let's also what you can see here is the different tools that are available through Skooler. I'm not going to go through all of these, but there are some that are quite interesting. We are going to focus on messages and assessments or assignments in a moment. But let me just explain this in a bit more detail. So well, you can see the small pointer. We're just basically showing the key activities which are enabled in a small ribbon at the top of the dashboard. The school information. What we've got here is that this would basically be any key messages from the school, from the headmaster, or from in some cases from a department head. And this could include messages and other things. But this should basically be everything that's related to the school environment represented there. On the right-hand side, next you can see process of messages. What do I want to say about messages specifically? Well, at the moment, you can see that they blanked out. Basically, this is to recognize that in some cases that, you might be sharing your desktop on a larger screen and you don't want to be showing messages from different people. So you have the ability to hide these, view them as is appropriate, and obviously to process them. So that's messages. Let's move on to next thing, which is resources. Which you can find down here. What we've got in the resources are obviously is a mixture of tools such as Microsoft Excel and things like that. But you also have the ability to integrate, other resources. So it's not only includes the Microsoft portfolio, but it also includes third parties and some resources that have been may have been developed internally within the school. So those can be plotted in there. And then finally, we have something called the overview, which keeps track of all the key data points within the organization. That could be, for instance, any absences, any ongoing assignments, and then you have the, kind of the activity logs. And then finally, at the bottom here, you have the statistics. What this basically shows is the status of all that is happening in a school and in and around a specific classroom right now, right? So it's all presented in a dashboard. What I'm going to show now is that something that which it is, is a plus on top of Teams is parent messaging. You have this tab called messages, and obviously you can have messages by different groups, and what you can see on the left is the teacher, and on the right is the it could be the student or parent. And the messages groups, you have the ability to create messages, and this is quite interesting. You can have different audiences here, whether it could be for parents, for students, or for other staff members. I'll keep playing here. In this case, this message will go to parents. The notion that's quite important here is that parents are associated with a student, and then students are associated with a class or a topic. And what you can see here is that you have the ability to add attachments and things like that. You have the ability to send an SMS as well. Again, which is quite powerful. This is something that definitely builds on the key functionality that already exists in Teams and is provided by the Skooler learning tools. What do I want to show now? I want to show something called Kudos. So we're going to fast forward here to basically what is called Skooler Score. What we're showing here is Skooler Score. Skooler Score is basically a means of providing kudos. What you can see here is that the user has the teacher has the ability to basically assign a kudos recognition either from a prescribed template, and you can see that there's a number of different ones here. It could be for homework, could be for problem solving, social distancing. That's very topical. And then you have the ability to obviously create your own. So you could come down and you could create one specifically for a relevant or topical subject or point of recognition. This gives you, obviously these badges can be customized. These can be once one is actually selected, you will see that you have the ability to assign these for a specific group. So you could assign everybody in grade 8 with a specific type of kudos. If some people if the whole class had contributed to learning in a positive way, you might want to remark that. In this case, we've selected creativity, or you can assign them on an individual basis as well. again, then you have the ability to see, what the kudos status is for a specific student. And we can see here that this specific student, Adele Vance, has accumulated 8 points for being kind to others, and has demonstrated creativity at least 3 times as well. And obviously you can go through student by student and see how they're performing. So you have the ability to track by individual. The next topic I want to show here, the fundamental belief in Skooler is that all kudos should be positive and reinforce positive behavior. Although there is the ability to if you can develop kudos awards in less positive cases as well, but that's something that is not really Skooler's approach to this, and they take the approach that everything should be positive. But there is the ability to obviously to provide less positive kudos awards. What I'm going to show next is so we've covered kudos. I want to show specifically something to do with assignments. And I think that here there's some very rich functionality within the Skooler offering. Creating assignments. Assignments is a tab you can see here. And what we're going to do here is create an assignment. And what you can see here is that, obviously we have the formula for filling in the assignment. But what is quite interesting here is have the ability to add images and basically enrich the assignment as is appropriate. What is quite interesting here is something called the scoring format, where a number of different ways of scoring or ranking or rating, marking can be applied here. I understand that these are customizable, so specific ones can actually be developed. But this is, you have a fairly flexible scoring format process. In addition to that, you obviously have the publishing date, the due date. You can add a Teams meeting for an assignment as well. That might be something that's actually desirable. The other thing is the undertaking the assessment. So there's some flexible tools here. I'm going to pause that for a moment, where you could get peers to mark or assess another student's work, and it's quite flexible, and you can choose the number of students to undertake assessments. You can also randomize the names. Let me show you how that actually works. So for instance, for marking Adele Vance, we could assign Irvin, Oliver, and Roger to undertake the assessment there, which is quite interesting. What they've done here is they've actually integrated. They're integrated with Turnitin, which is a pretty well recognised plagiarism tool that's been in the market for a while, and they basically have integrated that plagiarism tool into this assessment process. One of the other things which I think is quite interesting about what Skooler have actually done here is related to schooling or learning goals. Learning goals. So what you can see down here, and this basically reflects some of the work that Skooler has done in the US, where they've actually integrated the learning goals of the education establishment, or in some cases the local authority or Department of Education for a specific state, and they've integrated those into the assignment tool. I recognise that we've got participants on this call from multiple different markets and countries, and each with their own expectations on what should be learned in certain topics. But what this shows here is that those can be, once they're captured, they can actually be reflected into the education process and how assignments are actually set up. So I think that's quite rich. The final thing So we'll finish on assessments there. The final thing that I wanted to show, and this is, if you like, this is an add-on to the add-ons that Skooler actually provides, is something called Toolbox. Basically, it's a set of tools that Skooler have developed. They include, for instance, here you have they've included something called a timer. So if there's a time associated for a specific task, then they can set that up, and then there's a descending counter. Random students, quite interesting. But what this basically does is, if you are looking to ensure that you get, an equitable contribution from all the students in the group, basically you can use this random counter to a random student selector to identify who the next person should be in identifying or should be answering the question.